Good day, Rome. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Oh,
Is it okay to record this interview?
yeah. So I definitely agree that global climate change is a huge issue in like the modern community. It's definitely something that I've read a lot about on the internet and heard from various sources. For example, like I've seen Greta Thunberg, who's one of one of the youngest activists on global climate change today. And I definitely agree that it's an issue that needs to be addressed as it has immediate impacts for our future. With regards specifically to how I would promote awareness of it at my school, I think I would start by reaching out to professors in the relevant fields and maybe asking them if they would be open to hosting like events where we could talk about it in like small group discussions. Because in my time as a student, I have found that those usually tend to be more productive than having somebody just like lecture us as a entire classroom. So I would definitely start by, as I mentioned, talking to a professor, like seeing maybe if you could organize like a small group seminar, and then building out from there to maybe talk to more professors and try to draw more students from all different communities into our seminar, or like maybe like weekly seminars, and we would during which we would discuss like this very prevalent issue. Um, when I got to Penn, basically what I found was I started out by looking for the Filipino Association because like I am Filipino, I'm from Manila, so I thought it was something I would really enjoy participating in. But when I got there, I kind of found that, like as I mentioned in my essay, that there was a kind of divide. There were like some of my friends were telling me who were international that they didn't want to join the Philippine Association because like it's all Fil-Am, and then all the Fil-Am kids in the association were like, none of the internationals want to join us because like they don't think we're Filipino, or like they don't like they didn't they grew up somewhere else and their culture is different. But for me personally, like as somebody who had grown up in both cultures, I was born in the States and then I went over to the Philippines. I thought that while both sides did have their differences, I thought in general like we should strive to be one familia, right? So what I ended up doing was I sought out leadership within that organization. I was elected freshman liaison my first year, social chair my second, or no, sorry, barrio chair my second, social chair my third, and then vice president my last year. And through that, what I essentially aimed to do was I would reach out to my fellow international students while being on board of the organization, which was predominantly Fil-Am at the time, and I would encourage them to come out and like run for board, or come out to events and like participate, and eventually I think the natural bonds of friendship kind of help bridge that gap. And like as of right now, like it's basically half and half, and I go back to visit something that I enjoy seeing. Like I feel like we're definitely one community at this point, and I'm like very glad to have been. I'm very like thankful to have been a part of that. So I would definitely say that the value or like value or tradition of the Filipino people that I'm most proud of and identify most closely with is respect for family. I think that it was definitely been ingrained in me from a very young age to like always respect my elders and be open and caring for like especially with regards to my extended family. Like my lolos and lolas in Manila are still like very close to me personally, and I think that it really resonates deeply with me because I can't like there are specific like a specific example I guess would be I've always striven to kind of use my knowledge to fulfill that aspect of my life, like to give back to like my family and my grandparents. And I guess a specific example of that would be I studied computer science. So like one day when I was back in Manila, my lola mentioned that she needed help with something for her water company that she was running, and her bookkeeper wasn't able to like do something because everything was all on paper and very disorganized. So I built an app to help like digitize that entire experience. And I thought that that was like a good way for me to use like the knowledge and skills I had built over the years to give back to my family. I I think that family is like very very important, especially in like Asian like Filipino cultures, because it's something that's like very deeply ingrained in us from a very young age to like always be respectful and always like be appreciative of the things and the privileges that our parents have given to us. And I'm definitely like thankful for that every day. Like when like being here in the United States, like having gone to like UPenn is definitely a privilege that I'm very grateful for. And I'm yeah, it's been really really good, and I'm very thankful that my parents were able to like send me to this school and to provide for me my entire life, and also like teach me everything I needed to survive. For sure. So as a student leader at Penn, I was part of, like, as I mentioned, the Philippine Association. And within the Philippine Association, we did a lot of fundraising efforts. For example, like I was part of writing and directing our cultural show, which raised over $1,500 for the Filipino community. We sent all of the money back to help with the typhoon. Like that was basically just a lot of like organizing people, like right, coming up with a script and like making sure that we had all the venues booked so that we could come up with a show that was good enough that people would actually want to go to. Outside of the Philippine Association, though, there is actually something that I have done in the Philippines in the past related to what I majored in. So I majored in computer science and business analytics. And while I was at Penn, I would often like help my friends who more often than not ended up being Filipino actually, with like their assignments, and I would like tutor them in computer science to help them like understand like the principles so that they could go and apply it themselves. And when I was in high school, I actually did something very similar in the local Filipino community. I held a couple programming workshops to teach like young Filipino children like the basics of object oriented programming. And I think that's a really like useful skill, especially in the current job market. And it's something that I would definitely be willing to do in the future. Like I think I'm much better at like teaching and at programming now than I was in the past. And I think being able to bring that knowledge back to the Philippines and use it to try to help like get more people interested in like software and like engineering would definitely be something that could be very, very beneficial for like Manila as a whole. Because I think in general, since the world seems to be moving towards a more technologically driven focus, it definitely makes sense for people to be technologically literate. And I think that it's like very useful for people to learn how like computers work early on. And I would definitely be like, that's definitely something I think could really benefit if I brought it back to the Philippines. Sure. So I feel like the Filipino fruit that best describes me is actually pomelo. It's a fruit that I was like very well acquainted with in my childhood, and I think what really stands out to me about the pomelo is that it's composed of like so many different parts, like so many distinct like segments, and within even one pomelo, like all of the segments can be like very different. I feel like they can taste different. They can have like slightly different textures, at least the ones I've tried. um, and I think what really stands out to me about that is I feel like I'm a very multifaceted individual. I feel that I have been like involving myself in a variety of different things, and I think that I think that in that sense, being involved in so many different things has helped make me like has helped me make me like a more well-rounded person. Because in the same way that a pomelo is composed of many different like segments that may taste different, like made up slight differences in like flavor and like just overall quality, I think overall it's still a really good fruit and a really solid fruit. And I think that all my experiences have like come together to make me like I think a very solid like individual overall. It's a hard question. Pomelos are great. I'm very happy to identify as a pomelo. So
All right.
my parents actually came from Metro Manila. They're like the same area where I lived when I was in the Philippines. Culturally, like I can speak a little bit as to the culture right now. I'm not really sure what it was like during their time, but having lived in like Metro Manila and like having experienced that, I can definitely say like culturally, I think it's a very interesting atmosphere because it's very different from America, where like here everybody's kind of like very front facing. They speak their mind all the time. And in Manila, I feel like that's not as like emphasized because especially when I interact with people, everybody seems to be like focused more on being polite as opposed to saying what they actually mean. It's something that was like definitely difficult for me to adapt to when I was coming to the Philippines. Sorry, when I was coming back to the States from Manila, just like that cultural difference. Um, with regards to tradition, I think one of the most interesting Philippine traditions that I always have to explain to my friends when I get back here is the Burr months, and by that I mean specifically like when all the Christmas decorations start going up in September. It's I think it really shows how much we value that holiday, that we're willing to celebrate it so early. And I think it's like because like we're a Catholic country, right? The Philippines is a very Catholic like a very Catholic community, and that's definitely something that's been ingrained in me as well, like from a young age. And I think it's just really interesting to see how that represents itself in the way the Philippines celebrates Christmas, right? Like Metro Manila is it's really huge for Christmas and like the New Year. And I used to always go back for it. Even when I lived in the States, I would always fly back to spend time with like my extended family, my lolas, my lolas, and my titos and titas, and my cousins, because of like the importance of that holiday to our family and to like to the Philippines as a whole. Since it's like the day, so since it's like the day Christ was born, right? And we would go to midnight mass, and we would have like buenas noches. And I think that it's like been a really big part of my life for a while. And so I think culturally, like one of the biggest things that I enjoy the most is food. Is like their food back in the Philippines. I think it's really great, not just because of the quality of the food, but because of the way we use food as a means of connection. In the Philippines, it's very common to be like, oh, we should catch up. Let's like have a family dinner. And I think what that really drives home is like it's an opportunity for both families to really like share like their favorite recipes and to kind of bond over that aspect as well. Like we get to eat some really, really great food, and we get to connect like over the like an entire night. Whereas I think that's not as common in America, because in America it's like you have a meal and then you're sitting there for an hour in a restaurant and then you go home. But in Manila it's like a full affair, right? You have you like cook, you spend the day cooking, and then you have your families like get together and you spend like the entire night just like talking and catching up and like really like connecting over that. It's actually something that I actually didn't miss that too much when I went back to the America, because when I went to America we had Filipino friends as well, and we used to do that all the time. And it's definitely like some of my most enjoyable like childhood memories are based around just like family dinners, like catching up with like family friends through that. And then like some of my most lasting friendships have been formed through that today. Like I still have friends from those experiences who are in New York with me right now, and I saw one of them like a couple weeks ago.
And so
So
thank you so much for applying, Mr. Rom. And I'm so happy that you
thank
reached
you.
this far. It was really
Yes,
nice hearing your answers. Well, good luck to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
thank you.